Hey y'all, I just got that thing with Greg Biffle and his family. That thing is so disturbing. What a nice guy, man. I always watch YouTube. I got YouTube Premium and all that, and I'd watch him and um, just a funny guy. Him and his wife doing all kind of crazy stuff, and just he was up there the other day going to the performance place where he took his wife, told her he was on a date, and he's going to look at stuff. Anyway, uh, so many people dying senselessly in these aircraft accidents, whether it's helicopters or airplanes, and what it is, it's not their fault. It's they assume all the pilots are the same. Like, in other words, they assume, I guess, well, there's a standard, they got a license and it's good, but they're not the same. All of them's not the same. I mean, I'm gonna give you an example. I'm just gonna speak about what I know about. Years ago, when I wanted to I'd been enlisted in the Air Force. I wanted to go to flight school with the Army, because I got wind of it. You could be a warrant officer. You didn't have to have a degree, because I don't have a degree anyway. So the short story is, I said, well, to help me get in there, I went down and took a helicopter course, private helicopter course, and I did the test and all that. So anyway, I got a private helicopter rating. So that way, when I went before the board, they'd ask me about my military service and all the stuff. And I told them, yeah, I was really interested. And they'd ask you, why you think you can succeed? And I said, well, man, I'm a helicopter pilot already. I'm so motivated, so they like that. But anyway, my point I'm making in this is, I didn't even know how dangerous I was until I got and became Army trained, because when I was a private helicopter pilot, they just put you up there. You don't even do a real auto rotation like they would when you were doing the test, even for the examiner, when they put you through the paces taking the flight test. They would go like, you lost an engine, they'd roll off, and so you're coming down, and then you recover, right? But then when I was down in 84 and 85 at Fort Rucker, we still had Hueys, UH-1s, and we were doing full touchdowns. So you'd be, out all those fields out in Alabama with grass fields, you'd be flying. Now, you kind of knew it was coming, because you're above this grass strip. And then they had contractors, that used to be like old warrant officers that retired, and they contracted with Ace, was a company back then, and they were just teaching all us pilots. So he'd say, engine failure, and he rolled the engine off, and we were going down. In other words, you were going down there, and you were going to be on the ground. There wasn't any recovering, because they teach the real thing. And it got where you could do it, and I was like, wow. Now, later on, I learned they wasn't doing that. So, I don't know when that stopped, but I'm just saying, when I was down there in 84 and 85, we'd take the Hueys, and we'd go all the way to the ground, and then you'd just slide it when you got through, so you'd come on down, and you'd do your flare, and then you pull pitch and slow the blades down, and then you just settle down, and you kind of slide forward a little bit. But it made me realize that I'm like, wow, I was dangerous. I couldn't have done any of this if I'd have lost an engine in that old 269B that I had, paid to be trained in. Man, I'd have died, or if I'd had somebody with me, they'd have died. You ain't trained for any of that. With the Army, you trained all the time, and they'd give you crap, if you was, I remember, flying down, we took a Huey down there to, where was it? Gulfport, Mississippi, to leave it. So anyway, we was on the way down there, and I remember we went to refuel, and it was really windy, and one of the Chief Warrant Officer Force was with me. I was flying with him, and it was really windy, man. And I was like he said, man, I thought you went to flight school. He was just giving me crap. So what I'm saying, there's such a different standard in the Army. So like after that, knowing that, like when I see people go to the fair and get in a helicopter with some guy that looks like he's 20 years old, I'm thinking, there is no way my family's getting in a damn helicopter they don't even know. And then on top of that, then we're talking about the whole R-22 thing where, how they time out. That's a whole nother story, So I think my wife and son went up to Niagara one time, and I told them what kind they could get in. They checked on the pilot, and then they actually flew around Niagara Falls in an old Hughes 500. I said, yeah, you'll live another day when you roll that one. And but anyway, So think about that. Anybody, people would assume, oh, we got a license, they're not all the same. Look at some of the high quality people that go to all the flight safety, international, all the different training, and get certified and everything. After they got their type rating, they just hundreds and hundreds of hours. It doesn't matter what it is, they can handle the situation. And then you got somebody that's just got the minimum, and then you're gonna put your family in there. And so I don't know, I guess. But I mean, look at all the people that's been killed in helicopters there, and there are always some guy that was building hours or whatever. It seems like, I mean, I'm not saying all of them are, but it's a whole bunch of them are. But anyway, just think about it before you go joyriding and find out what somebody is, what they're doing. Even one time when I, for my son-in-law, gave him he got to fly like a flying lesson. One time we went up in a 172. I got in the back. I said, well, he's going to go up and get his thing, but the guy with the instructor, I said, what if something happens to the instructor? My son-in-law's going to die. I said, well, because I got about 110 hours in airplanes. But anyway, I said, well, at least we can move that guy out of the way and we'll land that rascal, you know what I mean? Take it back to the airport. But, you see that a lot of time when people's taking lessons. Their instructor pilot keels over and they don't even know how to get back. They don't even know how to land it. But I don't know, man. I know I'm rambling on, but God, what all them lives taken, And then the pilots, I guess I got contempt for them because, from what I understand, that they wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be a dual pilot deal unless you got, unless you're signed off on that and all that, and apparently wasn't. And then, just, that you would do, damn, whole family. It's just, that's sick, man. So, y'all out there, hey, if you win the lottery, come into $5 million and you got to have you an airplane, look at it this way. You need to have enough money. If you're going to have an airplane, have enough money to either, if you're wanting to fly it and be the pilot, then have enough money to put you a bunch back and go down there and learn how to fly properly with a great, flight school, and then go, keep up to speed with like Flight Safety International, stuff like that, like they do the actual commercial pilots, right? And, but don't just like get you an airplane and think, oh, well, I can just go out anytime, because you're not thinking. So, but, I mean, I just can't, had he had two pilots that was training that thing, what would they have done? They sure wouldn't have turned around and tried to make a landing in IFR with, all dirty like it with one engine. That's just crazy. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, but just be careful. Don't assume everybody knows everything, like I said, I know one thing. I think it's cool flying. I went one time in a Learjet, but the two people that were flying it, they had lots of hours, and they had the money. The guy was a millionaire and owned a big business, and they go and get all their flight safety stuff and all that. So I checked that out before I got in that thing, and then they had the money to keep it up. I always wanted to fly in a Learjet, so that was my only time. But I didn't just get in a Learjet and not know who was flying it. But you can't just go up, oh, well, he's a pilot, we'll get in there and we'll have fun looking out the window and all that stuff, and then everybody in the family perishes. So yeah, so what am I trying to say? If you got the money to get an airplane, you need to have the money to have some jam up pilots on staff. So that's, so what if you got a $5 million airplane? You better get you a daggum couple of $150,000 a year pilots, keep them on staff so you live another day, or otherwise become a $150,000 pilot yourself. Well, here's who I think of. I think of like John Travolta or Aaron Tippin. Aaron Tippin, country singer, he's got airplanes and stuff, and he's certified flight instructor, and he was a A&P mechanic too, and all that. So I'm just saying, some of those people, if you want to do it, you want to fly, go ahead and fly, but get good at it, But this dang gum just being half-assed with it, man. If I said enough, I'm just sick. People are dead because it's stupid. just lost their life for nothing. Them little kids, and I don't know, man. Anyways, Crusty Kirk out. I might better get back to my dogs here. I need to get a nap. It's been a long night. Later.